And welcome in to our premiere program for Saturday night. I just want to make sure we cut this other one off. We're going to leave this one off. Hold on 1 second. We just have a few things we're doing here, technical issues, and that'll be good. So now we do have a program coming on. It's Barbara's program, so we're looking forward to it. We do have a woman coming on that has a lot to say tonight, so you don't want to go anywhere. The guest coming on tonight is Deborah Hines. She suffered extreme child sex abuse as a young girl in the Watchtower. Many of you people are familiar with her story. So we're looking forward to her telling the story, and I'm sure you'll be listening with interest as I will be. So let me go back and let me bring them on. Let me bring Barbara on. And now we're going to bring Deborah on so that we can see you. So, Deborah, we're so glad you wanted to come on the 6 screens tonight. We had a lot of people inquiring, and is Deborah going to come on? I says, yeah, when she's ready to tell her story, she'll be coming on. So that's wonderful. So we have Barbara there. I see she's looking great tonight, too. I like your haircut, Barbara. You really look good tonight. You really do. So,
oh, thank you, Rick. That's coming from you. That's very special.
Well, I want to tell you, you're looking good lately. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to kind of cut you loose. I'm going to be in the background if you need me, but I want you to talk to Deborah. And I have some pictures. Deborah sent me a bunch of pictures that I do have. So at any time Deborah wants a certain picture, I have them here, Deborah. We'll be able to put them up here so people will be able to see them. So just say, Rick, put this picture up of such and such. And it might take just a little while to get it up, but I mean, within seconds, we'll have it up, okay?
Okay.
All right, very good. So I'm going to step out of the scene, and we're going to have you two guys go at it together. So here is the program. Barbara Anderson tells all.
Hi. Greetings. Rick, are you there?
I'm still here, yeah. But what I did is I came out so you and Deborah can be alone for your broadcast. Yep.
Okay. It's good to see you, Deborah.
You too.
You know, this is really the first time we've actually seen each other in the flesh, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Although you saw me on a broadcast, a video broadcast, but I've talked to you on the phone.
Yes.
That's about it.
I don't know what I would have done without you.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet you. And I probably met you or saw you many, many years ago.
I'm certain, yes.
Yes. When I was, and my husband were at Bethel, you were at Bethel.
Correct.
Yeah. And we probably saw a little girl running around at lunchtime before lunch started, and we thought it would be a guest. We didn't know that someone was there kind of all the time.
Right.
Yeah. So how often did you come in to Bethel?
Well, it started out, to just sum it up, my mother had been disfellowshipped after divorcing my father, and she was young and running around with a lot of men. She found one that she wanted to be with who had 3 children. And so I was living with my grandmother until then, her mom, my maternal grandmother. And because he had 3 children, she brought me to that house so I could take care of his children. So there was a family that kind of took me under their wing and took me to the meetings, took me to field service, and we did a lot of family activities, a lot of fun activities. And I kept begging my mother to return to Jehovah as I was told to do. So she agreed to do so, and married this guy, Bill, and he started studying with the same elders family that was taking me in. They found out there was a couple of the congregation who were ex-Bethelites. They found out that he was a filmmaker for industrial films. And right away, they poached him to come make what started out as a lobby film for the people that would come to tour Bethel, but while they were waiting for their tour guide to arrive. And it would show them behind the scenes where they couldn't go on the tour.
I remember that. So we went into Bethel in 1982, and you went in about the same time, didn't you?
Correct. I was about 10, 11 years old. So that would have been 82, 83. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do at Bethel when he came in there to make these videos? Did you go to school?
I was attending school, but I was doing it through the mail. My teachers had agreed to give me assignments, and then I would send them back. And at the end of the year, I would have to take a test. But being that I was in an all Jehovah's Witness school at the time, it was called New World Educational Center, they were more than happy to cooperate.
There was quite a number of those schools years ago, and they were protective of the kids from Satan's world. Was it a good idea for you to have attended that school? Do you think now when you look back?
I think it was very, I would say it taught me not to love, but to hate, because the visions that we received in, I believe it was called the Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained book before the Bible story came out. And it showed pictures, very, very graphic pictures of birds eating out people's eyes. Mm-hmm. And of course, we were told Armageddon was right around the corner. And where my grandma lived, there was a big brick wall, and I would not go around that corner for anything. So I was taught to fear anybody that was not a Jehovah's Witness and that they were evil. And if I did talk to them, it was only to try and convert them into being a Jehovah's Witness.
So you weren't even exposed to the world at school, so you really didn't know how to handle yourself amongst others that were not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Not at all.
No. And when you look back now, you, for many reasons, I know, but a specific one is it kept you from being able to have a life where you knew how to behave, or you knew, other than what Jehovah's Witnesses said to do, you knew how to act. Yes. And with people who were not believers in the same religion that you were in. So that was a sort of a detriment. But on the other hand, for the witnesses, it was a real plus, because you were apparently very whole-souled.
Yes, I really believed in Jehovah and the whole shebang. It was all I knew. So my starting in my family, my great-grandmother was the first witness, and it continued down on my paternal side. Until this day, my mother is still Jehovah's Witness. And I remember going into...
Your grandmother was knew some of the officials of the Jehovah's Witness organization.
Yes, in fact, I believe, Rick, you have a picture of my grandmother sitting next to Fred Franz when he was very young at a picnic, and they were good friends. So when I came into the picture, he knew my family and knew me very well. And the lobby video, I pretty much stayed with the camera crew and got to meet so many of the different ones that were, that's the picture of the school that I went to.
The school, yes.
Yeah.
I think they called them kingdom schools, didn't they?
Ours was called New World Educational Center.
It sounded better. I mean, nothing wrong with kingdom schools, but your name was more specific.
Yes, and the teachers and the students at the beginning were all Jehovah's Witnesses with no. The teachers did not have to have credentials. So all we were really taught was basic skills, and then of course about Jehovah.
So that's you?
That's me on the promenade.
On the promenade, right by Bethel.
That's right, right in front of Bethel.
You look like you are, what, 18? 16?
About that time, yes. In this picture, that's with Fred Franz and Brother Barry. That was the first time. That's when we made the lobby video. And you'll see my hair is cut quite short there. It was punishment because I had attempted to start speaking out of my abuse. So they cut all my hair off.
I'll say. So you were apparently, you look to me like you're maybe 10?
Yes, I was about 10. So that was the lobby video. And he knew right away who I was. He was losing most of his vision. Brother Franz was losing most of his vision at that point. But he still knew my family and told me I had a very pretty dress on.
I see. Lloyd Berry at that time was a governing body member. And,
yes.
And he also was, let's see, so he would be probably overseer of the writing department at that time.
I believe so. Later on, when we came back to do the organization behind the name and the Bible 1 and Bible 2 movies, I gained more independence. But the abuse that I started suffering, when I was 9 or 10 in those days, I'm 51 now, we weren't taught about sexuality, especially being in a Jehovah's Witness school. So when I was being molested, I was told I was being punished for my stepfather's children decided to leave as he raised them atheist. And so they chose to go live with their mother. And at that point, he blamed me for that. And this was my punishment. And I knew that it was something wrong, but I had no idea what it would progress into.
Oh, your mother suspected at this point, I don't want to get ahead of the story, but you had said that she was raised as a witness, and you mentioned to me that she was kind of slow in her oats back then, and so she was a bit promiscuous.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So she had me at 14.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, my father and her got married. I was born, and they were both baptized. After my father talked with the elders and whatnot, and could not prove that she was cheating on them because the rule is you have to have 2 witnesses. He decided that he no longer wanted to be part of that. So he left the religion, and therefore I lost my father at that point as well because of the shunning. I was told that he was dead to Jehovah and that I could not pray for him and I shouldn't talk to him.
You were about, what, 5, 6 years old?
Yes, when they were divorced, but I did not, he didn't get this fellowship till I was about 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're quite familiar with disfellowshipping. So you saw this aspect of the organization, that there was punishment for whatever the Watchtower said was, or what they would say the Bible says is wrongdoing.
Yes, I remember crying and being terrified when they read the letter at the congregation that my dad had actually helped build that Kingdom Hall and that he was disfellowshipped. And it was like, whether it was in my mind or not, but all heads turned to me. So I was very embarrassed and I felt very guilty at that point. So
this was when your father was disfellowshipped?
Yeah.
And you were sitting in the audience. That was must have been a trauma.
And the same for my mother
I
a
see.
few years later.
Yes. So you would think that as you got older in the organization and you matured, that you had been exposed to a different sort of life, that things would have settled down in your world when your mother remarried. But that wasn't quite what happened, was it?
Unfortunately, no. In fact, my stepfather's children spoke to their mom because they noticed that my stepfather started with he made me take showers with him, was how it started. And my step brother and brothers and sisters' mom came to my mom and asked her what's going on with the showering thing. And she told her to mind her own business, that she was trying to help us to bond and have a healthy relationship in an organization that she knew nothing about.
Well, that is absolutely horrific. When we hear these things, of course, I've heard so much over the years about abuse and what consists of abuse. I'm not shocked, but I think this one really shocked me because of the way your mother reacted to this. And
Well, she also was and still is an alcoholic. So he would wait until the appropriate time, when it would be later in the evening and she was passed out drunk or just had enough to drink to where she was completely asleep. And my bedroom was in the opposite end of a large house. So not only was it sexual abuse, but my head and my shoulders would be pushed into a pillow. So any noise or screaming I might make would be covered up. And he always told me if I told anyone, it would be worse the next time. That was my punishment.
Okay, so you bore up under this thinking you were responsible for it.
That's what I was taught.
That's right. Now, I think what we did I'm not sure, but I think we left out, how many months did you go to Brooklyn Bethel at a time?
About a year to a year and a half after the lobby video was such a success. At that time, they did not have a video department. They only had a photography department. And so we were called back to Bethel, and we would be at Bethel in Brooklyn for 3 months. And then we would come back to Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, where our home was, for 1 month.
Mm-hmm. And your father, because of his business, he was brought in a comfortable living, didn't he?
Yes, very well off.
So you had a lovely house.
My mother even told me, this is what you have to go through this in order to live the privileged life that we have. So just shut up.
Sorry to interrupt.
I hear a voice.
Are you?
I'm sorry?
Barbara, just continue on, Barbara. We'll open the line. We'll open the lines up later. Yep.
Someone has their, I think they have their sound on, from there.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. Continue on, Barbara.
Okay. So were you a lonely child at headquarters?
Really, no, because I felt like I was within Jehovah's Organization. I was privileged to be there, as I was constantly reminded. Unfortunately, while we were at Bethel, we were put into one of the brownstones that the society owned on Orange Street. And it was set up like a studio apartment. So it had a pull-out couch in the kitchen, which was like a double bed that my mother and her husband would sleep on. And then underneath there was like a trundle bed in the living area, but there was no door or wall to close it off.
No privacy for you.
No privacy at all. So I would hear them having relations. He would also again wait till she went to sleep and start to do horrific. I mean, if you've read any of the testimony or it's just very gross sexual abuse.
Yet he didn't do this to his own children.
According to my stepsister, no. I know that he was very hard on his two boys, and we maintained a pretty good relationship for a long time because they felt sorry for me, knowing that their dad. They didn't know exactly what was going on, but they knew their dad was doing something and it wasn't right.
Did he not molest a family member? If I remember correctly.
Yes. So years later, this was after I was already reproved. He molested his own granddaughter. So one of his sons had a baby, and they allowed her to go to his house with my mom. And at the time, I was pregnant with my first child, and my husband and I were doing a daycare, and we took care of her and in exchange, because I lived in an apartment. So in exchange to use their house, I took care of her for free. And when they brought her to my stepbrother's house, when I opened her diaper, it was full of blood. So I immediately called the father, my stepbrother, and we went to the police. They did find that there had been something that had happened. And I told them about my case. But in Arizona, there is only a 7-year limit of statutation. So by the time I was able to talk to police and also use this as an example of what type of person he was, I was told that it was too late. I couldn't do anything. And then after that, from what I understand, he bought them a house and they dropped the charges. And our contact ceased after that.
It's so sad that he got away with this, So sad. So there are so many questions I have, but I would like to tell the audience that from the very get-go when I heard from you back in, I don't know, let's say it's 2020, you wrote me a message through Messenger.
Yes.
It was, let me see, October of 2020. And you said that you said your stepfather, you saw me on television in a program.
Yes.
And that program, that was, I appeared on TV May 29th, 2018 on A&E's second program of the series Cults and Extreme Beliefs.
Correct.
Okay. Someone else saw that program.
Yes, my cousin had seen it and she knew what had happened to me. So she told me about it and she said, I don't know if this is going to actually trigger you or it's something you want to look into. Also, I had started thinking about everything with the Me Too movement. And so I waited. She had come out for Christmas. And so I waited until October to watch it. And I said, well, if this Miss Anderson answers my message, I'm going to do what she says and proceed with it. If not, I'm just going to leave it be. And you answered me, thank goodness.
I received it. This is what I received from you. You said that my stepfather is an abuser, an elder, and you were threatened and eventually lost all your privileges.
Yes.
And you got into a lot of trouble. So when I received that, because you mentioned that you were at Bethel, so I knew we had a reason to talk. This was different than most of the messages I got from people who were abused. And so it was in December that we talked. And you sent me photos. You sent me specifically a photo of yourself as a little girl. I think you said you were 10. And there was your mother and your stepfather. And you were on by the water.
In Mexico, yes.
And it was an absolutely stunning picture. I thought it was beautiful. Both of these people, and you were a cutie. I mean, you were adorable. And they were very, very nice looking people. They looked like, you all looked like the perfect family. But
yes.
what went on behind closed doors was really abominable.
That's correct. It was a nightmare that
and it really took a toll on you all those years because you had injuries from the abuse. Oh, there's somebody. Is that your?
That's my dad. I'm sorry.
Dad. Yeah. That's great. So then so you had a great deal of trauma, and so the stress of all of that caused your health to become very seriously damaged.
Yes.
So you were struggling. Now, when I answered that email, and you told me the first time we talked how, and I'll never forget this because it was just so different. And you said that your husband, it was during the pandemic, so
yes,
he was working at home on the computer when the message came from me to you, and he called to you, and when you saw it, that I responded to you so quickly, you said you broke down and cried.
Yes.
Yes, because why?
Because nobody had ever either, I was told that I was fantasizing or that it wasn't that bad.
Nobody listened to you.
Acknowledged. And nobody would listen to me. I was threatened to be disfellowshipped. I was removed as a pioneer because I would not stop talking because I wanted the abuse to stop. And as I grew older, I figured out what type of abuse it was. So in fact, when we were at Bethel, doing the first video, well, not the first video, not the lobby video, but the organization behind the name, because we were there for 3 months, go home, edit what he had, come back 3 months, film more. I was able to work in a different department as I was older now. I did some with the filming. And then I also worked in the laundry. I worked as
What did you do in the laundry? You touched my laundry. You know that.
I probably delivered it to you.
Yeah, my husband and myself and our son who was there living in another building.
Yes.
So, what did you do? Fold? Oh, you were a delivery. You were a delivery.
Mostly I did once it was already folded, we would bag it and then deliver it. And I was mostly overcharge of the kitchen linens. So in doing that, yeah, that was my overseer in the laundry department. And he was
quite a big operation. People have no idea. I mean,
it really was
4,000 of us at that time.
Yes. And so we had to deliver.
I can hardly handle a laundry for 2 people. And so, my goodness, it was, and we got it back. It was beautiful. Everything was pressed and, on a hanger. And
yeah, so his name was Steve, and he was very kind to me, but we didn't get they made sure that I didn't get too close to him. So they assigned me to deliveries. They assigned me to mostly the kitchen. And I made a very good friend in the kitchen. And
Who was that?
his name is Michael Phillip.
Mm-hmm.
He told me that he was going to talk to the appropriate people and make sure that the situation was handled. Well, he did talk to somebody, and the situation was handled in that they gave me my own room, which is...
How did that happen? Now, I remember when we talked on the phone the first time, there's a bit of a story there before you got the room. And you said you talked to the overseer who I knew, and
I actually talked to several people. So I talked with the person that was involved in the construction of new Bethels in different countries, Brother Underwood. I also spoke with Brother Barr because I've met all of these people. And
Brother Underwood was overseer of the worldwide construction.
Right.
And he really was responsible for Joe and I. He was the second person that interviewed us. And he was a father of 5 children. And they grew up at the farm, at the Kingdom Farm at Wallkill.
Yes.
Because his kids were with him. They kind of grew up there. He was the one over the first building at that.
Patterson?
No, Wallkill. Wallkill.
Okay.
That was way before your time. So, his children grew up there. He and his wife are deceased, but he was a grandfather when at the time you probably talked to him, he could have been as a grandfather.
In fact, they used to call me their spiritual grandchild.
For that, yes, and for surprised me that that wasn't what you said, wasn't taken more seriously. These were good people who didn't, I don't think they fully understood the ramifications of what was happening to you. I think that they never were exposed to this. And probably, all the interaction with children was never as difficult as what you were going through. So I'm not making excuses for them, but you did talk to 2 of the men that you talked to out of the laundry went to talk to Barr.
Yes.
And then he said, what was his words about your stepfather? Remember?
Well, he was also very kind and loving acting towards me. But what he told me was that was something that the organization needed right now, that Bill was somebody that they needed right now because they did not have anybody at Bethel or in any of the departments with that skill or that capacity. So that I needed to be quiet and that it would bring reproach upon Jehovah's name and the religion. And so what they were going to do was promise me they would not tell Bill, my abuser, what was going on. However, they would say because I was getting older, they were going to move me to my own room. I actually was in the Towers building.
But didn't that happen after you talked to Barr?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So there's 2 men go talk to him, and then Barr, who I knew very, very well, and we were socially, and we thought the world of them. He's a very kind man.
Yes.
And he mishandled this terribly, and for him to say to those men that in effect he couldn't do anything about it because they didn't want to lose your stepfather from what he was doing for the society.
Well, what he had said is he would take it to the governing body directly.
Yes, exactly.
And that was the decision that they had made.
Now,
as a group.
let me tell you how that works. the governing body, everybody pictures them that they say, what they say is like, is a law.
Right.
But that's not the case. That the way it used to be, you had to go through committees. And the governing body had to go through the home committee. It was the way things were done. So he had to introduce this subject to those who were running the home. To put a child in a room by herself or himself was never done at all. And right away, they would have probably said no. But he prevailed because, and notice, think about this. He said he went to the other members of the governing body. So it wasn't then that just he knew, and then later on, another governing body found out when you were in your early 20s, but they all knew, unless he was making a dramatic statement that was a half-truth.
Right.
And but I don't think so. I think that there would have had to be a lot of heads put together on this. So they concluded, okay, we'll take this girl out of this situation. And then they felt better about it. But they broke the law. They broke Caesar's law by not reporting this. And your life was really at stake. And I was absolutely stunned when you told me this initially. But then I remembered that I too had an issue I took to Jack Barr about someone who threatened me at Bethel. Mm-hmm. And he said to me that the man had been promoted to be assistant to the governing body. And I had known that he was corrupt.
Yeah.
And so when I told Jack Barr, he said, Jehovah put him in his place. We can't do anything about it. I even wrote to the committee, the entire committee that ran the whole place. And so the thing about this is you need to do the talking, but I need to do the explaining about how it operates. And as I grew older and more mature, even though I was an adult when I was at Bethel in my 40s, I really wasn't mature on this subject because I never done with it. I didn't know. So really, they did a terrible thing. They didn't think this out, and it could have been a huge disaster. And he promised you, after he told you that you'll get your own room, they broke the rules. You an exception. That is one good thing they did. But he said he wouldn't tell your stepfather why they were moving you, right?
That's correct. And they did.
And then what happened?
And then during the 1 month period that we were returning back to Arizona, because it was 3 months, 1 month, 3 months, 1 month, the abuse got worse to the point now where at the time I had to have surgery because I had a tilted uterus from the abuse. And I still suffer from TMJ and from my jaw being squished or, the abuse to keep me quiet. So the abuse just got worse. So I could never wait to get back to Bethel because I felt like
you had a room.
Yeah, my room. And the governing body, all except for one at the time, handled me with kid gloves. And I was kind of known as everybody's spiritual grandchild. So I knew a lot of the higher ups, if not the anointed or the governing body. And they would invite me special places. I was able to go help restore the Stanley Theater. These were all considered privileges, but in effect, it was just to keep my mouth shut, I believe. I mean, I'm sure some
obvious, isn't it?
Really cared, but they just didn't know or were bullied into handling it the way that they did.
Well, they were afraid, of course. The reputation of Jehovah's Organization, it's not only Jehovah's Witnesses, but years ago that we heard that about from the Catholic Church, from universities. They wouldn't, coaches got away with a molestation at universities because they didn't want to give the university a bad name. But actually what it turned out the opposite, because they didn't report, then all of these organizations got a bad name because they didn't do the right thing. And
Right.
they broke the law because New York's law said clergy needed to report. Now, it's different when it came to the penitent privilege, when the abuser would go to the priest or the minister. The minister didn't have to report in New York, but at a certain point in New York, the clergy were supposed to report. Well, they are all professional people. There's a big list of professional people, but families were hiding abuse too because they didn't want the neighbors, the rest of the family, to know that there was an abuser in the family. So it really was a sick, slick cover-up, wasn't it?
I know for my mother and her husband, it was a matter of prestige.
I see.
Because he had quite a bit of money. So eventually, since it was getting worse every time we went back home, I did speak with the elders in our local congregation.
Did you?
And they met with us, and he denied all of it except for what they call digital rape, which
yes,
okay.
Yes.
And he accepted that, yes, he had done that, but that was it. And they told me, okay, well, the matter's been handled by the governing body already, so you need to be quiet because you're dirtying the name of the organization. You're dirtying Jehovah's name. You're bringing reproach, and you will stumble other people. But I was so hurt and so tired of the abuse. I decided to become a pioneer because the family that had taken me when my mom was disfellowshipped, they were all pioneers. So we would go out service every day just to get away from.
So this was when you were back in Arizona.
Yes, when I was in Arizona. So then after,
so you were still a pioneer when you went back to New York. You're
right.
Considered. So you're in full-time work. Basically, they would have acknowledged that you were in full-time work. Around the clock, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah. You also would go to a foreign country at times, wouldn't you?
When we started filming Bible 1 and Bible 2, it was around the time the Berlin Wall came down. So we went all over Europe and filmed in Rome. We went to the different branches. And at this point, because the overseer that we had was a couple that became quite fond of me and believed me, Ted and Connie. And so because I guess he, tried to take it further. He
was one that went to Jack Garland, didn't he?
And
I knew him too. Very, very nice man.
Yes. And then we were assigned to a different overseer whose name was Don Commerce. And then
yes, I knew Don Commerce. Not a very nice person.
Not at all. No, very nasty, very degrading towards just comments.
Very degrading, absolutely.
Very degrading. Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember his last name, but the head of photography was the one that traveled with us when we went international.
Now he was removed. George Smith, did you remember him when he was made over photography? He
No,
was
this man's name was Mike something.
yeah, I know who it was, and he either left Bethel or he was removed. I kind of think he was removed. George Smith was actually a mechanic
Huh.
at the Society's garage, and
Wow.
he liked to fool with a camera, but he was a spiritual man, so they put him over photography. And you probably were gone by then. Oh, see, we left in 90 at the end of 92. Where were you at that time?
At that time, I think we were finished pretty much, and I had pretty much decided that when I went to the elders again, they said I had been talking too much, and so that I was going to be publicly reproved and removed as a pioneer. So I continued to go to the meetings. The same night I was there that they read, I was removed as a pioneer and I was publicly reproved. The letter following that letter was that my stepfather was an elder. He had been announced an elder. At the
So they
same,
removed you as a pioneer for talking too much, and they made him an elder.
yes, exactly.
It's really shocking. Now, your stepfather had his own children. Those at Bethel, although Underwood had children, but so many of the majority of them never had any children. I think if they had some, they would, like you're listening right now to a child.
Yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay, but when you're around children, you can feel for them. And so many of these men, like the ones that were told by you what was happening to you, they could identify with this, the seriousness of this. And of course, they were men too. But in this organization, when I first came out with this, early on Dateline, afterwards, the lawyers that took the cases, the woman lawyer told me that the majority of calls they had after Dateline, the first 2 weeks after Dateline, when we announced that the name of this law firm, she said most of the calls were from boys. And it surprised me. I thought it was mostly girls in the organization that were molested, but it really was boys. So boys don't talk much about molestation. They bear up until they're in their early 50s, so statistics say.
Yes. I just truly believe that this was Jehovah's organization and that
it was aberrant.
It was the truth. I kept going back expecting justice and each time getting stepped on and hurt more and more and more to the point of my mother telling me that I've embarrassed the family so much I should just kill myself. And I attempted to do so.
Oh, my goodness. Tell the folks about Ulysses Glass, what he said, and why did you know Ulysses Glass?
Brother Glass was in charge of Gilead at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, while they were filming about Gilead, I was able to sit in his classes. And
he invited you, didn't he?
Yes. And he was just very, very loving. And so him and his wife would invite me to their room and for a snack or a dinner or whatnot. And I even got to the point where I would call him my grandfather. He was very, very loving. And he told me, I don't understand. And I'm very sorry for everything that's happened, but there's nothing that they will let me do about it.
Remember, he called, you said in our initial conversations, it's been nearly 2 years ago, you said that he called you when he heard that you were leaving Bethel.
Oh, yes. I was supposed to be getting married to a Bethelite. It was kind of pre-set up so that I could be a Bethel because really a single woman, was not, without any super qualified skills, was not accepted into Bethel. And so when I started talking, of course, they decided that they didn't want that brother to marry me. And I got a call from Brother Glass, and he said that he was very sorry that I was leaving Bethel and that I was an asset to the family and I had a beautiful heart, and to not ever let what happened ruin my life.
You said he sounded as if he was crying.
Yeah, he was. Both of us were.
Oh, see, he's a dear man.
Yes. And he told me, you know, he had his own doubts because for many years he thought that he was of the anointed, or the 144,000
Yes.
that they say will go to heaven. And many years he didn't. So he had his own confusion with what was going on. And he said that Jehovah loves us just the same.
He was really an honest person to say that to you. He spoke truth. He didn't hide his doubts, and he wasn't a phony.
No, but he had no power.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
no, yeah.
he did have a small gathering of some of my friends and whatnot the last day that I was there.
So what was your age? And it was after that, this sort of engagement type of thingy they were trying to arrange for you. As that after that you
Yes.
left. How old were you then?
I was I had to be 18 or 19 because my application had already been filled out as a Bethelite and approved.
So when you go back to Arizona, you had, of course, you had your own room in Arizona. You had your own room in at headquarters for those last few, I think you said you were 16 or so when you got your own room, or am I?
It was younger. It was between 14 and 15.
14, yeah.
They were very concerned about putting me in my own room as being so young.
Yes.
So it was on a probationary period, and that's why they had me run the elevators.
Is that right?
Yeah. So in the morning when it was time for breakfast, I would be the one to go up and down all of the floors to get everybody to breakfast on time.
Well, see, I never saw you then because our rooms, we always chose a room on the lower floors because we wanted to go up and down by the stairs. You know, we liked that.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't as difficult to get because everybody was racing to get to breakfast. And
right.
So, so we lived in the towers too. We were on the second floor above the marquee. That was the first room.
Okay.
Second room that we loved there because it was one floor above the main floor. You could just run around, you know, you didn't have to wait on anybody. So, and then the other room that we chose was on the fourth floor. So that was also easy to get up and down. So the situation for you became so acute that you decided when you left, I'm assuming you went back to Arizona, but you did you go back to your stepfather's house? Or you had a difficult time, didn't you?
Yes. Actually, what I did was I was going to go to a concert with some of the other pioneers and people in the congregation. And my mother forbade me to go because there was some cleaning or something she wanted done. And I told her, I respectfully am going to go with my friends. I'm not staying here tonight. I'm going to be staying at my friend Annette's house. And she was also aware of my mother being intoxicated a lot and whatnot. And so the next day when I knew they would not be home two pioneers and myself got all of my personal belongings, not furniture or my bedroom furniture or anything, but all of my clothing and what I could get out in my car and their cars, and I moved out.
Up to that point, though, your stepfather was really supporting you.
Supporting me
financially.
Financially, yes. I was working for them.
I see.
So I went to work for another brother and who had his own business, and told him the story. And he wasn't very active, so he didn't really mind that I was going to be getting in trouble with the witnesses. And I moved in with who became my husband and the father of my first child. So he was a full-time publisher and I was a pioneer. So of course we were both removed and carried on with our life for quite a while. But there was just something that always called me back, and that's that control or that brainwashing that they put in me so young, having been in the school.
Well, as you said before, it's fear.
Yeah. So I kept going back and going through committee after committee to where I would have to tell 3 men every single detail of what happened to me as a young girl. And
that was before you married, though.
Yes.
Yes. You married in 93?
Yes.
Yeah, David. And you had a little boy who is
7 now.
He's 28 or something like
27.
that. 27, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this marriage ended up in a divorce.
Yes.
Yes. He was his family were witnesses, and so he'd been around. You knew him in Arizona for quite a few years before you married him.
Well, his parents became inactive, and he went to live with his grandparents. And his grandparents were in my congregation, and his sister was my best friend.
I see.
It just kind of happened.
Here again is a sad thing, because both you had a troubled past, he had a troubled past, and he was on drugs. Is that right?
Yes, very badly.
So this raising kids in this organization is not the answer to having children that are very balanced. And I mean, not saying that we all have the desires to do different things, but the bragging of the organization as if you raise them by what we tell you to do, how we do it, whatever, you're never going to have problems. And when you do have problems with your kids, or they have problems, it's something that they're doing wrong. They're not following it. So it put the blame on them.
Yes.
I once said to the Awake editor, we were brainstorming on an issue, and I said, one of the things that affects me, this is 91, and I said, is that there's always condemnation, but there isn't commendation. We need to commend the flock. The condemnation is the guilt, always the guilt. Mm-hmm. And so you're always trying to reach out for something that would relieve the guilt.
Right.
And so drugs can easily come into your life for the wrong reason. There's no right reason, that's for sure, but the overuse of drugs. So this ended in divorce, and your son, he because you were having difficulties, right?
Oh yes, I was having difficulties. So I ended up going again back to the congregation, my parents, my mother and my stepfather at this time had become need graders in Ecuador. So
I want to squeeze this one in. You were in your early 20s. I think you were married to David at this time, and you were sitting at the pool, side by the pool at your stepfather's house, talking to
yes.
who?
Garrett Loesch.
Yeah.
And he was very rude. And I'm not sure if he was a governing body member yet, but
no, he wasn't. It was right at that point where he was
very well known. He was being vetted for that.
Yes,
position.
absolutely. That's why they brought him there.
Extremely boastful about that, and he just made me feel like dirt. Like I just should be so appreciative that I have the parents, the money, the whatever that I had. And
what was he doing? Was he vacationing with his wife at?
So my parents loved to have the higher ups come down.
Yeah.
You know, that gave them their prestige in the congregation, and they employed half of the congregation.
I see.
So, of course, when I went to the elders, they weren't going to disfellowship or punish their employer. They were going to punish the problem.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes.
And he treated me as the problem child too. And he came down, even though he wasn't governing body or he had just been made governing body, he came down to speak at the convention. So he was our special guest at the convention.
I see. Now, didn't he, or did I get the wrong impression that he sort of knew about your case?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was the best kept secret that everybody knew, I think.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I was just considered as being rebellious and unappreciative.
All the while you were suffering so, and there was nobody there for you.
No.
Except maybe a cousin or your grandmother or a girlfriend or someone.
When I was younger, my grandmother never understood when we would come back from Bethel. She'd come over to visit. This is my mother's mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she would come over and I would hide her keys. And
her key?
Her car keys.
Car keys, okay.
So she couldn't go anywhere. And so I would tell her I was not, and they said, this is just not like you. You're not like this. Why would you do that? I said, either you have to spend the night here with me or I'm going to spend the night with you. And then I'll give you the keys. And so once I finally came out and told her, she did believe me, but she was already starting to suffer from dementia and breast cancer and whatnot.
But you kept her there so that he wouldn't come into your room.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because he was continuing to do this even when you were back in Arizona.
Yeah. And it wouldn't stop. It got worse and worse.
Did you ever? If those who were appointed by Jehovah that you were led to believe were, and they were God's people, weren't listening to you, it was obvious why a child or a young woman wouldn't, as sheltered as you were, wouldn't go to the police,
right?
To the authorities, because you'd be frightened. I'm not words in your mouth, but
you're told not to speak with the government or the police or
anything like that. So it's obvious psychologically how this works, isn't it?
Yes.
How this works.
Yes.
To keep the child quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's
once it all came out, so many family members, including my dad and others, were like, that's what was going on. We knew something was going on, but we couldn't figure it out. And so because of my fear of things getting worse or betraying Jehovah, betraying the organization, I kept it to myself. David, my first husband, was really the first person that I told everything to and showed true compassion towards me for it.
So the fact that David had such a troubled life, and you did too, so the marriage didn't work. You had a little boy. Your mother took that boy away from you, didn't he?
Well, this was years later. So I went to afterwards too. I went to Ecuador and I stayed with them for a short period of time until I got my own apartment. But to get really free from both of them, my mother and my stepfather, I quickly married a Jehovah's Witness in Ecuador.
So, So in Ecuador, had they moved officially, or were they doing back and forth?
They were still doing back and forth, but they would do like a year there and just come back for a couple of months. So they were doing work for the Bethel there in Guayaquil.
I see.
Mm-hmm. So they were doing filming there. And one of my best friends and her family that were witnesses had also moved to Ecuador. So I would go to their house all the time. And they believed me about it. And at one point even took it to the branch, and Bill was removed as an elder temporarily. And then once the husband that I married there became abusive, and
so that was Fernando.
That was,
and it was a year after your divorce. Mm-hmm. You said to me why you felt, because you sought care from a mental health provider, and you learned a lot about yourself and the results of abuse and what caused you to do what you did. And why did you marry a year after you had a little boy?
Yeah.
And you're in Ecuador, and you marry a Fernando in 1999?
Yes.
And now, that's an extraordinary tale. You know, you have so many stories. One was, one is horrible, and then you got another one and another one. And why did that practitioner, the mental health practitioner, he enlightened you? What did he say to you? Why were you doing this? Why were you jumping from marriage to marriage?
I was trying to seek love, somebody to listen to me, somebody to love me. And when you are abused, there's usually 3 categories that you fall in. You stay an abused person, you become an abused person, or you take your life of being a victim and turn it into a victor.
Turning into what?
Turning from a victim to a victor.
Oh, a victor. Yeah, like a survivor.
A survivor. Mm-hmm. And tell your story. So I was a white, cute girl down there and had all the guys, but he was the one that they told me was the nicest guy. So I married him to get away from my mother.
You were really codependent, weren't you?
Extremely codependent.
And how did you feel inside about yourself? Always how?
I always had felt that Jehovah was real and that he heard me praying, but I never felt worthy of prayer myself.
I see. You always felt guilty, like you were a bad person.
I had just done this or just done that. Yeah. Or maybe it was, at one point they even had me thinking maybe this was all in my head because of all the brainwashing.
Well, nobody talked to you reasonably. They said how they felt, which they felt was always protect the organization. Don't protect the child. The organization to this day does not care about its. They don't even call them members any longer. Associates. They've never cared about the members. The members work themselves to death for Jehovah, but it's really not Jehovah. It's an organization that they work. so they're never given anything by the organization, and so you were an example of really an orphan. You were an orphan in more ways than one. And after your grandma's not there any longer, who cares for you? So you're full of guilt that nobody cares. I'm not a psychiatrist or a mental health practitioner. It's just reasonable. It's just
Right.
understandable.
Yes.
Yes. Now tell us about what Fernando did.
So he began having regret that I had a child. And so he said he should have married a virgin. And I wasn't happy with some of the living conditions, that being a third world country. And started making a few demands, like an actual toilet and an actual shower.
Oh.
And he didn't like that. So he would hit me. One time he hit me so hard with the end of the belt, the buckle. It made an imprint in my face. And when I told the brothers what had happened, they said, well, you married into this culture. This is how this culture is. They do punish and beat their women. And nothing was done about it. So eventually in 2001, 2002, we moved back to the States. And I knew he was cheating on me, but of course I had no proof. And if you don't have two witnesses to prove it, they can't do anything. So they told me I could not leave him. So when I left him, I was again disfellowship, because I ended up getting back with my first husband, David, who protected me from him.
You compounded the problems.
Yeah.
But you are old enough, you can look back at all of this and understand the child that you were. And we all understand mistakes we made in our past, or not, even if they're not our mistakes, but we learn how to deal with it. If we don't learn how to deal with it, we won't survive.
My whole reasoning in doing the lawsuit, speaking out, anything, is even if just one person is listening and needs the help, or in the same situation, stop believing the lies, stop being brainwashed, realize that you have self-worth. And the other thing is, I have 4 children of my own, and my husband has children, and I want to stop the generational curse.
Yes. And so many people realize that they have to do this to raise the next generation with sanity. Child abuse lends itself to mental health problems. So many, and so people are thinking about this, but there's lots of problems on the earth. But you don't expect. Well, I don't know. I never really thought about this in God, what we thought was God's organization, until, and we're talking about incest or interfamilial abuse, until the Australian Royal Commission hearing, and when the records were removed from the branch by the authorities, and they checked all the list of all of the over 1,000 molesters that weren't turned into the authorities. The majority of them, they were interfamilial abuse. It was family abuse. It was a father or mother that abused their own children. And so I didn't understand that when I was a young woman. And I wonder why so much of that. I mean, I know full well that there are a lot of perverts around who are looking for a kid, this life.
Well, another theory is what happens under this roof stays under this roof.
Well, that's true, but why in an organization do you have so many who come into it or could be raised in it? What is it about this that lends itself to this? Because I helped a couple come into the organization when I was 15. I was 14 when I was baptized. 15, I met people door to door. Helped them come in. It was a wife and first and then her husband. And they had 2 children. It was years and years later that I was asking somebody about that couple. And it was like 20 years before. And I wondered what had happened to them. And the person knew they never moved away. Like we moved to Florida from Long Island. And said that the man was abusing his children. And see, maybe it's the guilt that they feel, so they're going to erase that guilt if they come into what's, called Jehovah's Organization. Jehovah's repentance. They can get repentance is a big reason why these guys and women get away with what they do. They're so repentant, and so the elders say, we have to accept it. We have to accept it, so they don't call the police and whatever. We all know what that means.
And the sincere, repentant people are not believed and cut out anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a very backwards.
It really is. But now Fernando, he did something to you that was quite should be part of your story, and in Ecuador.
Mm-hmm. A few years later, so about 2004, 2005, I had agreed that I wanted to terminate the marriage, and we had property. We had built a home, and I had paid for some land with some money that I had, and then we sent money to his brother to build a home. So we decided to either go down there and sell the property and divvy it up, or try and work things out. Well, it was a complete lie. He kidnapped me in his brother's own home, and I was only allowed to come out for meetings, and I was not allowed to speak to anybody because I was disfellowshipped. And my son was very little at the time, so he was about 8 years old. He got out to take the trash out and found a police officer and told the police officer what was going on. So the police officer called the American Embassy, and about 2 days, less than 2 days later, the American Embassy took us into custody and contacted my father and sent us, gratefully, my father was there for us, and he sent us to his home and away from Fernando.
Well, I had a happy ending right there. That was such a trauma.
Yeah.
You had a daughter with Fernando.
I do.
And she's a very special young lady, I understand.
She is amazing, and she is still in the organization, and
yes,
she does feel very guilty about the shunning and whatnot, and really the shunning is just it's an incredible tool of manipulation, because it not only manipulates families, it divides them. And so she has an abusive father and is afraid to leave because of losing contact with friends and family, just like I was. And my mother, she's afraid of losing that contact with my mother. Recently, I reached out to my mom because I've heard through the grapevine that she's had a couple of surgeries, and they acted like they had never.
So she's divorced from your stepfather that molested you.
She divorced him, but not until I was already married to Fernando when she divorced him.
And so she's married again?
She married somebody, had an affair, and married somebody who was not a Jehovah's Witness. I did not believe in the shunning. I believed in what was originally spoken, which was you were allowed to speak with your immediate family as long as it was not about spiritual things. So I kept in contact with her. She, however, when she decided to have him start studying and come back, as she did with my stepfather, she told them it was my fault that she had had the affair because I had pressured her to leave Bill so much that she had the affair with this new man. And they're both Jehovah's Witnesses now, and they both practice shunning. And I have two children that they've never even met. I gave them an opportunity to speak with them over the phone. She told my son at 10 years old that as long as that his mother was trash, meaning me, and that she wanted nothing to do with him. I gave them another opportunity just a couple of weeks ago because they live near a park. And I said, you don't have to speak to me or see me, but my sons would like to know their grandmother. And I can sit at a park bench and, supervise from far away. And again, I was told, you're dead to us until you come back to Jehovah. And she's been through this fellowshipping 3 times and bringing somebody back into the organization. Never shunned her, but she shuns innocent grandchildren who've never been Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm. Well, in her case, there's more to it that's psychologically than what she says. You can easily say that it's the religion that made me do it.
Right.
But it's also a reminder, too. And she is an alcoholic, so she's very needy. She has a lot of psychological issues. And we face up to that kind of thing. They don't realize that they're cutting their own throat, by not showing the right spirit towards someone as loving as you and the grandchildren. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, I wanted to talk to you. Of course, you after you got you had a divorce from Fernando, and eventually you married this fellow who you is a very dear man in your life, and have 2 boys. So you've made a life for yourself with the help of some good people. Yes. And there are good people who are Jehovah's Witnesses. It's not every other person is a abuser or comes into the organization to hide. But good people who have a belief that we respect that they have a right to believe what they want to, as long as they don't harm someone else with that belief. That's the whole issue. So, but I wanted to back up again. I'm going back and forth, but I think our listeners can appreciate this because you mentioned about shunning and disfellowshipping. And you and I know somebody, I don't know him well, but you did. And I would like to talk to you about someone who was at headquarters, and when I was there, and probably is still there, he's an old man now, and that's David Simonian.
David Simonian, yes.
Mm-hmm. My dealings with him are different than yours, and I want to hear your story. But David Simonian was when you were there, he was in the graphics department, and but eventually he was transferred. I don't know when, but I was disfellowshipped over 20 years ago in 2002. At that time, he was a spokesperson for the Watchtower, So with the press, when they wanted an interview about some issue to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, it was back then in public relations department.
Right.
David was part of that. And so I want to mention for others to learn through this, you know. You tell us about your interactions with David.
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, it breaks my heart because David Simonian I knew as a little girl growing up in the congregation. He was the first person I ever knew to go to Bethel, and had a big party. And I mean, he was very supportive. His family, his sister, and him and his mother were very supportive during the time that my mom was disfellowshipped. I would come into the chemo, you know, I was just a little girl, and he'd lift me up and tell me what a good girl I was. While he was at Bethel, the brother that I was to marry was under him. And so David and I had stayed in touch for the years. I went to his wedding, to his wife, Anita. And we always constantly wrote each other letters or called each other on the phone. Once I was at Bethel, we would see each other regularly.
It was like family, wasn't it?
Yes. So we had a race to see who could make chocolate chip cookies faster one time. I felt comfortable telling him about the abuse too. And he, of course, said, well, you know, that you have your own room and it's handled and blah, blah, blah. But then to hear him come out and completely deny, when his brother was also an elder on one of my committees, is still a Jehovah's Witness as far as I know, and also knew the whole experience, for him to come out and blatantly lie to it just really, it not only did it break my heart, but it made me so angry, because why would we lie about these things instead of helping build each other up? And knowing me firsthand from the time I was a child to a grown or a young lady at least, and then his brother being on one of my committees, he's known all these years. So for him to deny that is just really a slap in the face.
Sorry to say, but that happens to so many abused kids, where the adults, they deny. Those who suspect, they deny they suspect, you know.
Yeah.
And so I have lost my link.
Oh, I still see you and hear you.
Well, are you seeing me?
Yes. I can see you and hear you.
Okay, it's back. Well, that was peculiar. Okay, whatever, as long as it's back. I'm no expert. Why is it that to tell the truth would cause the individual who knows the truth some discomfort, because there's ramifications, and this family knew if they said the truth that this organization punishes, that this organization, you can't break the rules, otherwise you suffer, and you don't want to lose what you got, especially since it's power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really taught me that there was a lot of hypocrisy in appearing to really care and love about somebody, and yet, you know, show the other face or another mask. It was very painful. I really wanted to call him, but there would be no point. You know, I'm too old for that now. He knows what he did.
I'm familiar with Simonian. I think his name is lovely. It's just that when I try to say it, I mess up. Simon, let's see. Semonian. Simonian. Okay, let's talk about Simonian. David. When I was just about to be disfellowshipped, there was articles it was just a week or two before Dateline. And Nashville newspaper was contacted, and they did some pretty big stories on the disfellowshipping of us who have spoken out. So there were, at that time, 2, 3, 4 of us that were going to be disfellowshipped. So as soon as we knew that that was coming, we notified the press. So they called headquarters, and guess who they talked to?
David.
And his remarks were interesting to me. I went back, I had the newspaper comments, and this is what he says. The reason I bring this out is because this is being scrutinized more than ever, disfellowshipping and the reaction to it, shunning. But look at what he says. He paints a beautiful picture. It says, a person can be disfellowshipped. Now, this is the reporter. Can be disfellowshipped for, the title, disfellowshipping described as worse than death. A person can be disfellowshipped for being unrepentant about serious sins such as adultery, theft, drug abuse, or an attempt to create dissension in the congregation, said David Simonian, a spokesman in the denomination's Brooklyn, New York headquarters. While outsiders may view the punishment as harsh, Simonian said, members have a different perspective. Quote, it's direction from God's word, he said. It actually is very loving. What the shunning does, it protects the congregation from unwholesome influences of those who blatantly disregard Bible influences. Simonian said that it also serves to make those who have been excommunicated aware of how they've messed up. Quote, this is quoting David, this person blatantly wanted to do what's wrong. By shunning him, it impresses upon him to come back in a right relationship with God.
Yeah.
So he turned something so unloving into being loving. And we've heard that over the years. Oh, it's a loving thing because they come back because they miss their family, and they wouldn't come back to Jehovah if they weren't shunned, you know. But then at the same time, their own elders book says that you can associate with your family, just don't talk about spiritual things.
Correct.
Right.
Now you're being told.
So he and you know, this statement that I just made has been in the elders' manual, the shepherding, since 2010. So it's just not been put in there last year. It's in the updated shepherding book, but it tracks back to 2010. Now, that very same Nashville, Tennessee newspaper, it had 2 articles. And now get this one. David is quoted again. The Jehovah's Witnesses officials cite 1 Corinthians 5 as a scriptural basis for their practice of disfellowshipping or shunning members who are unrepentant about serious sins such as adultery, theft, drug abuse, and attempt to create dissension in the congregation. Spokesman David Simonian said, this chapter of the Apostle Paul's letter to believers in Corinth tells members to quit mixing with unrepentant sinners. In the New World Translation, the version of the Bible used by Jehovah's Witnesses, verse 11 reads, but now I'm writing you to quit mixing. So he quotes the whole verse, mixing in company with anyone called a brother that is a fornicator or a greedy person or an idolater or a reviler or a drunkard or extortioner, not even eating with such a man. Well, it didn't apply to me. I didn't do any of that, and I'm not a man. So, well, there.
Yeah.
That's the case. So, and what did you do? What did you do? A child that talks too much because of horrible harm done to her. So, David knows this. This is 2002, years later, after knowing your story and knowing plenty of other stories of problems in congregations as an elder, and he has heard it all.
Yes.
But he goes on here. The reporter writes, usually people who have been disfellowshipped work to rejoin the congregation. Simonian said he did not have any statistics about how often people are disfellowshipped and later return to their congregations. Witnesses do not worry that shunning former members will push them away, he said. Quote, David says, it's a standard set out by Jehovah God himself in the Bible. We always know that his thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and anything he directs results in the best outcome for all of us. Was that the best outcome for you?
No.
No.
It could have cost my life very easily.
Because?
And because I tried to take it. I couldn't accept the pain anymore of not being believed, being belittled, being harassed. And at the same time, if you want to go back to the Bible says God is love, and it gives the example of the shepherd that leaves the 99 to go get the one. So by shunning, how much more if somebody is disfellowshipped, how much more would they need to be encouraged to be brought back, not act as if they're dead, because that makes them want to be dead. In my case, it did.
Yes.
My mother even told me, well, you've embarrassed this family so much, you should just kill yourself. So that's exactly what I try to do.
How sad. What helped you an awful lot outside of one person? Let's go back now to when you needed help. You really needed help. You've been through broken marriages. You've been through different kinds of abuse, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who did you reach out to who has a witness background? We talked about him. He is a motivational speaker.
Oh, Rodney.
Let's give him some kudos, okay?
For Rodney, yes, of course. Rodney Allgood. He is a motivational speaker. He is still a witness. He has actually never been disfellowshipped and talks about it, that he leads the largest ex-Jehovah's Witness group on Facebook, and still went to his son's wedding and everything. And he has a program that is just, it's amazing. It really helps you to learn your self-worth and to separate it from religion versus what the Bible would say, or common sense even. And I met him right before I met you, actually. And he immediately got me into I couldn't afford to pay for the program. It does cost. It's not a lot, but he took payments. And then he does an in-person in different cities and lets you know, which also the tickets are very reasonable. But at the time I could not afford to pay. I paid for ours when my husband went with me. It really helped him to just understand why I operate the way that I do. But one in our first conversation, he said, do you know how many times you said the truth in the last 10 minutes? It was like 15 times he had counted. So even though I had gone through all of this, I was still calling it the truth.
You had left it. You were affiliated with a completely different type of Christian religion. And and yet these words, these trigger words, really what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said them so. I think it's fascinating to peer into some of this to see why we do these kind of things. I mean, we're basically, generally, I'd say, humans that fall into kind of the same responses here and there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he certainly did assist you. You had some very interesting. I love the word interesting. I need to find some other word for it. But you know, you're successful in your own right. You have worked for lawyers. Am I right?
Yes, I was a legal secretary.
So, you could take care of yourself. You have now a happy family. You're raising all these, you know, I don't want to say you got a lot of kids. I mean, you got 2 young ones, and the others are a little older. But your relationships with a lot of people, and you do very well. So something's working, and so we give credit to where credit is due. It's great that you found your husband, someone who understands and loves you dearly, and other family members are there for you.
Yes, in
Yeah.
fact,
If they weren't there for you, all that was for you, who they weren't for you, was the Bethel family.
that's
And
right.
what a shame that was. If they had responded, but of course it was a very select few people that you talked to. But if only, remember those 2 words, if only somebody would have listened, it would have saved so much heartache.
Yes, it would have. But, you know, I do feel that I choose to be a victor and not remain a victim.
Yes.
And if my story will help somebody, in fact, I am in the process of writing the book. So that'll be available, and I'll let definitely Six Screens and you know when it's about to be published. It's a long, traumatic, and very taskful thing. But I've since gotten in touch with several. In fact, my cousin just left right now. He's also disfellowshipped, who came here from San Antonio to support me today. My dad, who's been disfellowshipped, is here today with me to help me. My son, who was abused as a Jehovah's Witness by my own mother and her husband physically, is here to support me. And we know my husband and I have a yours, mine, and our situation, like the Brady Bunch. But our children, and I love his children as deeply as can be, but in particular, his daughter Angelina, she has just been a rock for me as well.
But you must be a rock for them too.
I
hear your schedule. You know, it's a 2-way deal. You have a lot of empathy. If anything, it didn't harden you. You know, you have so much empathy and care, so much for others, and we need, you know, more people like that. And not saying what happened to you made you like that. You are like that. You are a loving person. You always have been. And you were such a disappointed person because others didn't respond back to and give you what you needed. And but there is one thing that stands out in my mind, and I want to emphasize this to the audience. And many of these programs are listened to by people who are Jehovah's Witnesses, and some of those are at headquarters. And if what I want to say is that one of the things that happened, that really, really so awful, that they changed. It took them so long to change this. And that was a horrible thing. The child abuse was horrific.
Yes.
But what the Watchtower insisted that you, a child, do in the company of 3 elders was horrible. Until it was the law of the land that really went after them, and they had to change. There is no scriptural reason. There is no reason at all for what they made women do, children do, and that was in those judicial hearings.
I believe it's a perversion of sorts. I really do.
Yes.
For 3 grown men to make you confront your abuser and tell your abuser and the 3 men every single detail, and don't leave anything out, or you're not being honest and Jehovah.
Repentant or whatever.
Yes. And have them, your abuser, say, oh, some of what she's saying is true, but she's exaggerating. And them running with that, saying, well, he's sorry he did it. It was just, you just exaggerated it. It's devastating. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
Yes, I believe it was 2016 when they changed that policy. And it was because it was a Canadian case. And there were a few men at the Canadian branch that were handling a pretty bad situation. And they were highly criticized by the press, I think even by a judge, on this very issue. Now, my memory, that's a long time ago as far as I'm concerned. But I do remember, because I don't remember every detail, but I was so glad to hear Satan's worldly organization forced the Jehovah's Witnesses, shamed them, and they stopped requiring this.
Yeah. How many
lives make people awake to see there's something wrong?
Yeah, definitely. I think that alone will save some lives, and I hope that people will just learn their self-worth and learn that who they are, because that's what it took for me. It really took for me to figure out who I was. I didn't know who I was. All I knew is I was a Jehovah's Witness or a bad Jehovah's Witness. So they really have to learn who you are, as not just as a mom or a wife, but as an individual, and find your purpose, and then do the best you can to help the ones you love.
To be useful.
Yeah.
Because that brings happiness. What happened in, let's see, 2019, your involvement with Jehovah's Witnesses? Or their involvement with you?
In 2019, I had already contacted you. I contacted an attorney's office that you recommended, and the witnesses, we're still going door to door at this point. Told them I was disfellowshipped, and still, for a moment, had an inclination to say yes, I want to go back. So they would bring me the magazines and whatnot, and I did not want to go to a meeting. Well, then COVID hit, so I didn't have to go to a meeting, but they still wanted to meet with me over the phone. Once they found out this lawsuit was filed, the same elders came to my house and told me, if you drop this lawsuit, you will be reinstated, no questions asked.
Yeah. Well,
so much for repentance or anything else.
How do they sleep at night? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's because they don't look at you or anybody they deal with after year in and year out, listening to people's problems, idiosyncrasies. That after a while, they don't. It says it's meaningless. It seems like humans are like that. And, it's too bad, but you get used. My husband has an old-fashioned. It's a funny saying, but it makes a point. You get used to hanging if you hang long enough. You get used to bad.
Yeah.
It's always that way. And so they forget that they're dealing with somebody else who has feelings. You forget. I say this about those in the service department at headquarters. Year in, year out, 40 years of listening to people's problem. You're on a desk, a California, Northern California desk. There's a Southern California desk. And the man who mans that desk takes all the calls in. Now, that's years ago. They might have 4 desks for California now. I don't know. Yeah. Or less, because people are dropping away from the organization. So the troubles you hear, people call that desk because they got something to tell you. And it usually is not good. It's either the circuit overseer or some elder. And their records must be horrific about what people tell them. After a while,
they become calloused.
Yes, you're exactly right. Callous is the word. And the spiritual element of the religion is really not there. You might say it is, but it really isn't, because you have to practice. If you're a spiritual person, whatever that means, different people, it's different strokes from different folks. And but when you're hardened to wrongdoing or people who are badly injured, you could forget that they are breathing people like you are.
Yeah.
I sit and I watch. I said this yesterday. I watched television, was eating my lunch, and saw they were discussing all those people on that Greek boat.
Oh, yeah.
And hundreds of people died. I'm sitting there eating my lunch in comfort. They're showing the boat. They're talking about people slipping into the sea as the boat turned over because of this or that. And your heart has to bleed. Why all those people suffer and you have comfort? It isn't fair. So, but it is life. But if we can do something to make life easier for someone else, to me, that's very, very important. And I'm not pushing it on others. But I think I'm not critical of, I'm not trying to make people look at life like I look at it. What I want Jehovah's Witnesses who brag all the time to look at this.
Right.
They do the bragging, but they don't do the practicing of what they were bragging about. Some do. Some circuit overseers were simply wonderful in my life.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine too. But when it boils down to it, it all has to go to headquarters, and what they decide trickles down, and either you follow it or you're out.
Yes, and they don't know the person involved. It's like Dan told Joe and I, he says, I'm the one that recommended the assistance to the governing body. He says, we need new blood. We need new blood here, new ways of thinking. And so they all agree with me. We're going to get new blood. He says, so they bring this program in.
Yeah.
And so who was made assistants of the governing body but Bethelites?
Right.
It wasn't new blood. So he said to Joe and I, he said, so what do we got? We got the same old thing. See, they could see it, but they don't want to admit it to themselves that this is no special group,
Okay.
They'd rather live like I don't want to preach to the choir here. Everybody listens knows these things. Your experience is a demonstration of what too many have gone through in this organization, and we didn't know it. We just didn't know. If I was working as a in the field of police work or for an attorney, I've worked for different companies, doctors and things. I know a lot about those things, but I didn't used to know much about the law.
Right.
And so we learn all of this, and we see the shortcomings of this organization. They say on one side of the mouth of Caesar things to Caesar.
Right.
So you, I think you recognize that it was too awful for words what you've been through, but you made lemonade out of lemon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for telling us. And if we haven't put Rick to sleep, maybe he wants to interject something. See, I told you. Hey, while I got you, I want to read you something. I found this the other day. It's off the topic, but I love sharing stuff, sharing facts, sharing stuff, because it makes us grow. And I have something here. It's a letter. It's a copy of a letter, and it's from Judge Rutherford. It's from the date on it is November 27, 1933.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, "Dear brethren, thank you for your kind letter inquiring what can I do." And then he says, "Have you taken your stand on the side of Jehovah?" And then he goes on, "Get baptized." And, he said about remission of sins. And he says, "It'd be proper for you to symbolize that agreement or consecration by water immersion in the presence of witnesses." So basically, you're showing your agreement to do the will of God. Of course, they've changed their tune many times over what baptism means. But initially, though, it doesn't mean what they say it does today. What I found fascinating about this, the second paragraph, he talks about study the word of God diligently. And it's quite a little bit about the water of life. Take the water of life freely.
Mm-hmm.
And now, wait till you hear this one. This paragraph, the Lord is separating the sheep. That is the obedient ones from the goats. That is the disobedient ones. And this he is doing by bringing to their attention the great truths of his word. Do your part to get the truth to the people. Well, first of all, the organization gave up separating the sheep and the goats after 70 years of teaching that.
Right.
And I know the year, 95, I think it was. Then it says, now get this one. This means do your part to get the truth to the people. This means that you are joining no earthly organization, but that you are joining yourself to the Lord and joyfully serving him.
Wow.
Means you are joining no earthly organization. We joined an earthly organization.
Sure.
And we paid the penalty of joining. And so what's wrong here? Why did God's mouthpiece, so called, why did he tell us things? Like I told my son when I was leaving, I said, for all those years, 43 years, I preached, separated the sheep from the goats. And after find out 70 years of that, And it wasn't true.
Right.
So my son went like this.
Oh, wow.
For real. He didn't want to hear it.
Yeah. When
So
it's down to it, they don't want to hear
no.
it.
But we joined an earthly organization.
Yes.
And we felt the requirements of it. Otherwise, they would get rid of you.
Yeah.
And of course, that was the, although, you know, years and years ago, you could just not attend anymore. But those who leave it, they get punished one way or another. Because
the last time that I finally left, I had been reinstated and decided to slowly distance myself, and they went ahead and held a judicial committee without me and disfellowshipped me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's a novel way. They put that in your book, and
yeah,
you won't believe it.
And my first husband's sister, she's still my very good friend. She did the same thing. She went back into the organization to be able to talk to her family and friends and whatnot and distance herself, and they did nothing. She's just inactive. So they definitely had a vengeance for me that wasn't of God, of course, but
well, you kind of said before, your stepfather employed so many people. There was reason for them sticking by him. I remember you told me there was a man and his wife in the congregation that were quite wealthy, and they didn't like your stepfather. And they had written or the gentleman had written a long letter to the society. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, that was, his name was also Michael. They kind of became parents to me, because even after my mom was disfellowshipped, I tried to talk to her, but she was still drinking and drove my children home drunk. And so I had to tell her she could see them anytime, but not unless I was present. So after seeing everything that I went through, an elder named Michael wrote to the branch in both Brooklyn. Well, it wasn't in Brooklyn anymore. They'd already moved to the farm, or they were in the process of doing so, and to the branch in Guayaquil. And that's why my stepfather, because he proceeded and proceeded and proceeded to go higher and higher and higher until he couldn't. He was just told, okay, we're going to remove him as a elder. And they did so for a while. But when I left, they said, well, she must have been lying. So they promoted him right back to elder. And many of the pictures and whatnot that he has on his social media are of little girls. So it just killed Michael and his wife, Carrie, whom I still love very much. And I know in a roundabout way that they do too. They still care for me too, but they've been in too long. It's too much. It's all they know.
That's true.
They're not going anywhere.
Sure.
So then they recently had contact with my daughter and make sure that she's okay as a witness, since they're both in the same organization, I've heard.
Well, they have kindness.
Yeah.
If this group pleases people, you know, we don't mind that. That's not the issue here. If they can get their act together completely and do the right thing on behalf of the people, but they're not. They're moving away because of liability. So, yeah. So that's a whole nother topic. We've discussed that here on 6 screens, as you've noticed before, not only me, but many other people. And the organization is a kind of like a dying organization. You know, culturally it doesn't fit and whatever.
It's almost a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
A ticking time bomb.
Well, that's right. What it is for so many the changes on in civilization are so great. So we just don't want to repeat this again and again. And that was why it was so important for you to talk to others and to, I think if there, and I know there are witnesses who understand the problems within it, but they still love. I read quite a epistle yesterday, and the man acknowledged his problems that he sees within this group, but he loves the concept of this group.
It is a good concept.
It is.
But you have to follow it all the way through, not when it's convenient.
and you know, and the belonging to a community is important. So that's not, we're not haters of anyone who is a JW.
No.
Just do it right and show kindness and love, and many do. But they don't if you leave it. And that has to stop.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Rick.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just listening here with a lot of interest. I mean, Deborah did a fantastic job. And I mean, it's not, Deborah did wonderful. And it's not an easy thing to come on. I really give Deborah a lot of credit for coming on and telling her story. I mean, we're looking at what I do here at the control panel is I monitor all over. We're on about 7 different platforms right now, but everybody was so impressed with Deborah, and the interview, Barbara, really, really went wonderful. And Deborah, you're a real trooper. I have to tell you, of all the programs and all of the different stories of abuse in the Watchtower that I've ever done, I've been doing this program now for 17 years. I put your case as one of the worst. I know that's not a good position to be.
Yeah. And we didn't go into the horror of what he did. When I heard the horror of what he did, I was like, God, I couldn't believe a human could do to. I mean, I know what they did during the Holocaust. I know people can do horrible things, but I didn't dream that it would be within this organization. That was the thing, you know.
Right.
Well, see, Barbara, that's the evil part of it. I know there's, you know, sometimes you can cut people some slack, but when you have an organization that, in Deborah's case, she has every right in the world to be totally aggravated. This poor girl went and told officials of the Watchtower what was going on. What were these men thinking? Really, that's what I often think about it. You know, any normal, sensible person would just jump out of their skin and put a stop to this.
Well, wouldn't you want to get rid of him too? Who wants him making your videos? I mean, that was he's bad. He's a bad dude.
He is.
You know? And I would want to put him under the jail just so he won't get to the next one and the next one. I mean, this wasn't just an impulse on his part that he did once a year or two. This is a practicer. Yeah, 100% did he fit the scripture a practicer.
And he premeditated what he would do. So it's just pure evil.
Yeah, but you know, not just the man that abused her, the stepfather, but you know, I also hold the Watchtower totally accountable.
Sure.
I mean, totally accountable. I mean, they if they were sensible-minded men that cared about people, and not just about the Watchtower, but if they were sensible-minded people, here's a young girl having this happen to her, and these guys just turned a deaf ear to the whole thing. They should have jumped right. So I hold them just as accountable.
I do too.
And that's why we do these programs, exposing how evil they are, Barbara.
And one thing I wanted to point out too is that we really did conflict, my attorneys and I, because I really wanted to take this all the way to court so that it would really, it would be out there, and justice would be served, not only for me, but victims that have had come out and haven't come out. But under my attorney's guidance, they were not willing to do that. And I didn't want to lose my attorneys. So we did, of course, make a settlement. That's all I can say about it. But I did want to continue the lawsuit. I did not want it to stop where it stopped. And so therefore I am writing, and I am going to continue to advocate for those that are.
And when someone does a movie of this, Watchtower will completely do away with the house-to-house work, even though there's only 5% of Jehovah's Witnesses going door to door, statistically anyway. And so anyway, we hope that someone does a movie of this, and so the whole world will see this, and we will help to translate it into the languages.
Yes. We are working on getting that taken care of too.
Yeah. That's the way to punish, shame
Right.
them.
Right.
But the ones who are responsible are dead.
But the people continue it, and David Simonian is still not dead.
Well, that's true. And he should feel guilt.
Yes, and many others. It's still going on. It's not just back when I was young. It's still happening.
Well, this organization has put in practice policies that protect them from liability. And they can't really stamp out child abuse.
No.
But they contributed to, because if you stop the abuser after the first child, there's not a second child abused. See, you put a stop to it. If only they had over the years done that, if they didn't accept repentance and did their social duty and report this, there wouldn't have been a second and a third and a fourth. If they weren't in the witnesses community, they were in other communities where these people, these very sick people, operate.
And what's really concerning and specific, my abuser, is he's in a country where, when I went to door there, the very first door I went to, the lady saw that I was an American and lined up a whole bunch of children that were all hers, from little to probably 16, and offered me to purchase any one of them for $20. So if you have a sexual predator in that type of economy and system, what more is he getting away with?
So then a predator can spend $20 and have a child every day.
Own a child. Not just prostitute.
Now that is extraordinary, isn't it? That our audience needs to, I'm sure many of them are aware of it. It's just that we're kind of spoiled in this country. We just don't think like that.
It's terrible.
So,
well, let me step in here, Barbara. I mean, that's just totally remarkable what Deborah said there, but it's true. It's hard to really envision all of this. It's even hard to believe this all took place even in Deborah's story. It's very difficult for people to wrap their head around it, but this stuff takes place. And that's why when people come out like Deborah, and of course you, Barbara, working along with survivors like this and getting this all exposed, it's making a big difference. It really, really is. I know, Barbara, when you first came on Dateline back in 2002, this was just starting to seep out. But, this was even going on back in the 1960s and the 1950s.
Oh, yeah, sure.
This was going on for a long time, but the internet is the great equalizer. This really spread the news real fast. And the Watchtower now has got a very tarnished image. Really, if you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses today, especially in Pennsylvania, with the investigations on sexual child abuse taking place there, you'd have to be hiding your head in the sand. I would feel so embarrassed, even here in Massachusetts, going out as a witness knocking on doors. I know when the Catholics had their problem, even up here in Boston, when it was first exposed, the Catholic Church was abusing children. Many priests in the diocese up here would not even go out wearing their collar. They were so embarrassed. So the same thing is going to happen with the witnesses. As this news continues to become more paramount, many witnesses with their carts, they're going to say, man, I can't stand out here. And they're already being targeted. So this is good. The exposure is good. And, you know, there's no excuse for child abuse anywhere, any place. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have a lady of courage like Deborah.
Yes.
Come on here and speak about this tonight, because I'm going to tell you, Barbara and Deborah, you're helping so many people. I'm looking at people coming in from all over the world listening into this broadcast tonight. And, you know, many have never really come to grips with what was going on. But hearing your story tonight, this enlightened them. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And of course, Barbara, you know, thank you for everything. You're so dear to us.
Well, I appreciate that. And I really don't know what to say anymore about this all. I just do it. I just do it because I think, I don't know, Deb, I don't know if I could have survived what you survived. You know,
well, you helped me survive it. So you really did. You helped me get my life back. Helped me be able to inhale again.
Well, thankfully that that broadcast that they wanted to do that. See, they also just deserve kudos.
Yeah.
These companies that are putting on these broadcasts and interviewed us. And the results here all these years later, 2000, that was that 18 that I did that. And so they have, I did one on ID Discovery. I did one, let's see, I think it was 15 or 16. And that was the suicide with the man who killed his whole family. But it was a suicide pact, really. The kids didn't have as much say, but the parents, because they believed they were going to go to heaven.
Right.
And so I forgot all about doing that. And I came up in a discussion. I had to go back and review it. And when I did, it hit me like a ton of bricks. That would have never happened that way had there not been shunning and disfellowshipping. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take this. I have the video. I'm going to start moving that video around. I'm going to start giving that link all over the place. Let people watch it that have forgotten it like I did or have never seen it. And to realize what horror, terror, whatever can happen over disfellowshipping and shunning.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Well,
anyway, Rick, I'm running out of words here because I've said all my.
Well, yeah, no. Let's do this. We might have a few minutes here left. Let's see if we can't. Maybe some people.
Oh, the audience! Let's get the audience.
Yeah, I'm sure that some people.
Okay, Deborah, here they come.
Well, there's some people out there that kind of pent up. I'm sure they'd like to talk to you, Deborah. At least suggest some thoughts that they might have. So why don't you do this? If you'd like to say hello to Deborah Hines, you heard her story tonight. I mean, you want to talk about extreme abuse in the Watchtower. Deborah's on here with us tonight. Here's your chance. What would you like to ask Deborah, or at least discuss with her? You're on with us now, so go ahead. It looks like we have Apostle Babe. Go ahead, Linda.
Hello.
Hello, Linda. You're on. Go ahead. You're on with us, Linda. Speak up. Well, I'm not sure why we have some issues here with our telephone line. Linda, you're on with us, so go ahead. Speak up. All right, let's go to 720 Denver, Colorado. Go ahead. You're on with us.
Hey, Rick, it's Dan. Hey, I just wanted to say what a great interview. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you both. This is validating a lot of people. There's a lot of people that need to come forth. I've had a few people on my show with a horrific story like yours. They were terrified. And the fact that you stood up, so transparent, so fearless, everybody's listening. And I pray that other people will come forth and get the help from Barbara and get healed. And like Barbara said, this is just a chapter in your book now. Now You're getting to another chapter. And it's an encouragement to all of us. All of us are listening. We all believe you. We've all heard the stories. This is horrific what happened to you. It's like a never-ending story. It's going to make a great book and maybe a great movie. What do you want to say, Angela? You can move on. Yeah, it shows that you can move on. I like what you said, Deborah. Absolutely. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to be a victor. Watchtower will not make me a victim.
That's right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, it's amazing. Now, what's going on here? The telephone lines, I see people on there, but for some reason, we got some people who cannot speak up. Apostle Babe, you back on there with us? If you'd like to say hello to Deborah Hines, you're on with us now. Go ahead. Hit star 1 or star 6. 315. Go ahead. You're on with us.
Hello, Rick, and this is Fran, Joe. I love Barbara, and so Barbara, thank you so much for this wonderful, excellent interview. So captivating. One thing I don't know if you mentioned, and I know others were wondering, Deborah, is what happened to your stepfather.
He is currently living in Ecuador. There's no extradition there. And from what I understand, he's very, very sick and cannot get the medicine that he needs. So he's not doing well. But he is still, as far as I know, a Jehovah's Witness. He's remarried. And that's it. I really don't know. I have to look in the front, not the rearview mirror anymore. He's not my problem anymore.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Our daughter and our son-in-law were in Ecuador. They were at the branch, so they knew a lot of people in Ecuador.
Oh, they probably know either myself or him or the Lewis family. Both were very close.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you again, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, we don't want to have Deborah stay a stranger here. Well, if you're on our radio telephone network right now, go ahead, speak up. Say hello to Deborah Hines. My goodness, she told you her story tonight. Don't you think it's courageous that a woman could come on and say this? I mean, it's just unbelievable, some of the things that she would tell us. And, even just reading the story, when it first was posted a couple of years ago, the lawsuit was unbelievable. So we have 540 area code. You're on with us. Go ahead, 540.
Yeah, tonight this was broadcasted in Washington, D.C. with a couple other people that I know, and their story was going to be told throughout Washington, D.C. metropolitan area with some Congress people. So you have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
So, caller, what you're saying is some Congress people from the United States government were listening in tonight. Is that what you're saying? Hold on one second, just trying to get a comp. Okay, David. So you do say there were people listening in from Congress. Well, that's good news. Okay, thank you, David. That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Oh, okay, you're next with us. Who is this? You're on with us. Well, just some issues here with our telephone line for some reason. I'm not sure why, but just wait 1 second. Whoop. Okay. Folks, just hold on 1 second. Our telephone line goes off every 6 hours. So just hold on. We'll come right back in again. Every 6 hours it goes off. So we're going to get it. Well, let's see. Just give us a second and we'll get our telephone line back up. It goes off every 6 hours. So let's just stop right here. And we'll enter the number here again. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, our platform here only allows us to have a conversation going for 6 hours, then it stops. But we'll get it back on here.
Welcome into the live 6 screen.
Just hold on for a second. It's coming on now, so we'll get our caller right back in.
Speak up and talk. Press *6 on your telephone. When you are done talking, press *6 to mute yourself. Remember, when you are unmuted, your phone is a microphone and picks up on all noises in the background. We hope you enjoy the programs tonight. You will now be placed into the conference. If you are the host, press *. Please enter your...
Yeah, just hold on with us. We got Deborah Hines on our line with us tonight, and she'll be coming in very, very shortly. Once again, we did have a caller that wanted to talk to. We do have a caller that wanted to say hello to Deborah. So, okay, caller, you're on with us. Say hello to Deborah.
Hello, Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. I follow you on Facebook since this whole thing started when your case was brought out with the complaints and everything and your attorney, and I just sort of followed you, but now I'm so glad I finally got to see you and hear your story. And you are a very brave woman, by the way. And
thank you.
So you can hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I was born in, I'm 67 years old. I was born in, so I know what the indoctrination is like. But I had great parents. Unfortunately, you did not.
No, not at all.
And I started coming around. Actually, I had my doubts back in 1969 about some things, but I started coming around back in the early 2000s with Barbara Anderson and Bill Bowen, the Silent Lambs, and my sister was all over that, and she was telling me all about it, and and I had already, in fact, I knew Rick McLean, if you know that story, and he was a monster,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you know that story, right?
There's at least 100 children that he got to.
Yeah. And I have to clarify, it is my stepfather and my mother. My real dad is great. He's right over here.
Yeah.
But it was my stepfather that was the terrible parent. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and his first victim was 5 years old. And that went on since 1978 all the way to 2006 when they finally, got exposed. So, but anyways, I just wanted to say, Deborah, you're a brave woman. I'm so glad you did this. This is a new chapter for you, and I can't wait to read your book.
Thank you so much.
And may God bless you.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Did we have Larry John Wayne? Do you want to come in from California? You're on there with us, Larry. Did you want to come in and say something?
Yeah, I just want to say hi. And I want to say, Deborah, you're superhuman.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
It's because she's a woman.
You're welcome.
There you go.
Well, I'm just going through the chat here. People said, Rick, will you at least read some of the chat comments? So I'm going through them kind of quickly here, but they're all so well. They're saying you're looking good, Barbara. See that? I told you. And they're saying that Deborah is really a brave woman. Man, they are really liking Deborah Hines as well here tonight.
Deborah Hines is going to be a voice. She's going to replace my voice one of these days.
Yeah.
Add on to, never replace.
So they're just saying that it's horrible what happened to Deborah.
And she won't give the details. The details will knock you for a loop.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, in fact, I remember the details. Man, maybe we'll get Deborah back on sometime again. In fact, she's welcome anytime she wants to come on. But yeah, it's just unbelievable.
People can't handle it. I mean, you know, oh man, they be up all night thinking about it. It's I mean, just one thing that was in that complaint, one statement. You want me to say it?
Go ahead.
I even hate to say it because it was so horrible to me, and I shouldn't have brought it up. It was in your complaint, so thousands of people read it, and they must have all just. He would pee in your mouth.
Yes.
Yeah, that was horrible. And I would have, just over that, I would have, if this had been a different time and we all marched in the street, I would have had a big sign up, I'm telling you, or hung him from the biggest tree. I don't really mean that. It was unreal to me. I grew up in just a very respectful home, just absolutely never even dreamed of things like that. And I just, you know, if there was a punishment, your stepfather should have it. And he's very sick and he can't get the medicine. Good. So
well, certain karma or justice or whatever you want to call it.
I don't know.
Comes around.
You know, we don't say what we really feel because we're too.
Yes. We're trying to be educated here.
Yeah. We're not X-rated. So,
exactly.
You know, I got a little joke. Would you like me to tell you a joke?
Yeah, let's cheer it up after that one.
Okay. Isaac Asimov said, you know, famous man, life is a journey, but don't worry. You'll find a parking spot at the end.
Yeah.
So true. We go through so much. You know, the ride isn't easy, is it? The ride to life.
No, but it's looking up now. So thank you for all your support.
Well, you have some good friends in non-Jehovah's Witnesses in the last few years that you put your life back together with your wonderful family. And you made such good friends even in the church that you were attending.
Yes.
And I just think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think you're helping people all around, you know, waking them up to how serious.
Oh, she's definitely doing that, Barbara, because as you were talking just about that gross act that her stepfather did, you know, people are listening in. There are people that bad and perverted. But, you know, years ago, no one would talk about this.
Yes.
There are so many people. I mean, you just roll the clocks back, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. People would not talk about the abuse they suffered from, and they kept it all inside. It wasn't a good thing. It really
No.
wasn't.
No.
Now people are beginning to say, hey, I'm going to tell you, this is what happened. You're just a child. You don't know what's going on. But for Deborah to expose the evils that went on, it encourages more women and even men that have been abused. I know some men that have been abused sexually in the Watchtower. It encourages them to come forward and say, hey, look at this is what happened. And the Watchtower really had better start addressing this problem, because if they don't, they are going to be stuck in the mud. There's nowhere for them to go. They've got to come out and address it and apologize.
Yes,
to all
yes, that's it. It isn't just paying. That's the thing. You hit the nail on the head. They're paying left and right to get rid of these lawsuits. They don't want to go to court. They don't want the negative advertising, right? But why don't they just say, why can't they just say, we're sorry?
That would mean so much.
You know it. The people that didn't listen are gone. But these people today, they're so arrogant. That's what makes you so irritated, so arrogant. Their words on JW.org is so arrogant. There's no other word to fix them. But all they can do is brag and oh, we're great teachers. But they should apologize for what they did. You have no idea how many cases. I was at Bethel for the entire year talking to abuse victims from Bethel all around the country. And then I come home, another 4 years I worked for volunteer work for the writing department and was talking to victims. And my name was spreading secretly amongst Jehovah's Witness abuse victims. And I have letters to prove it. And all of the time and effort and horror, it's a nightmare. And they can't even say, we apologize. Why don't their lawyers tell them that? Why don't the lawyers say, look, governing body, put together something, we'll put it together. Sign your name. We're sorry our organization didn't handle this correctly.
Well, amen to that, Barbara. And I have to say,
you made a good point.
I have to say in 2013,
given voice to the voiceless, and even the Vatican and their people did say sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, in 2013, I wanted Deborah to hear this. I went down to see Brother Loesch. I knew Brother Loesch. As a matter of fact, Deborah, one time at the turn of the century, around 2002, the Watchtower called me in for a potential position on the governing body. I was of the anointed class. I won't get too deep into that right now. But I went down in 2013 to talk to Brother Loesch. I say brother, but I went down to talk to him, to tell him that they've got to acknowledge this problem, that they've got to come clean, acknowledge it, and at least say something to the effect that they're sorry this happened. But they did not want to talk to me. Of course, at the time, I was distancing myself. But if they would have done that, they wouldn't have as many problems that they have today. But they did not want to hear anything. But that's what my message was, to come clean. Apologize to these people. But they kept hiding it and hiding it. Oh, my goodness. Well, anyways, we don't want to keep you on too much longer here, Deborah and Barbara. But, we look forward to you maybe coming on again sometime. We don't want you to be a stranger, Deborah.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
I wanted to briefly answer Barbara's question, because she was mentioning some people that she knew, and later she found out that they had gone over to some evil things. A good Christian gentleman would say, no, we don't do that in my family. But there are men that are not good, that for more than 60 years talk to each other as if they're talking about a brand of beer. And I think that there's a ring here, and I think it's gone on for more than 60 years.
I have to agree with you because I have had correspondence with people that say that too. There was I have my letters that proof, and one detective said that they've infiltrated this organization, and that years ago they infiltrated because it was easy to get at it because of the policies. So they knew they were safe. All I had to do was say, I'm repentant. Nobody's going to report. They knew that dang thing about going to the, go talk to the elders or the congregation servants, and then elders, and tell them your problems. And instead of tell the authorities the problems that were a crime. That's the whole issue. When it was a crime, but the perverts knew, and there's a case now, right now, that's going on in the United States, and it's over seven elders, and they knew they could get away with it. So it wasn't only there. I knew of a group out of Chicago that was disbanded a number of years ago. There was 4 elders all involved, and the school teacher told me about it. So, so the detective in the letter that I received, he said, all of North America, these people have. This has got to be 20 years ago. See, it was at that time when they were getting away with it. Before there was publicity. The publicity, like you're talking about, see, that's why this is so important. What Rick is doing to let us talk about this. And it is easy for them to do what they're doing because there are people who are doing what we're doing, and we're talking about it. So back then, nobody would talk about it. As everybody knows, we can repeat, but it was the time we were living in, those 70s. It was a book out in Canada that I read when I was at headquarters. It was called The Dirty Little Secret, and never have forgotten that. It was a Canadian story, but it was about generational abuse. It was going on constantly, generational abuse. Taking small, tiny little kiddies and molesting them. And then they grew up to be molesters, and their kids grew up to be molesters. And who knew that such things were going on, you know? And so the pity the kids that are born into families like that, like who would think, you know, that apartment, I was thinking about that where you stayed and putting you, and that was ridiculous. You have a picture that I saw, but you sent me, of the doctor's daughter and you.
Yeah.
Laura. And they were given an apartment.
Right.
It was brownstones. There was a very little room in those apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And so they should never have done that. The families that came in and gave of themselves, some of the lawyers that came in and they had kids, and they put them in these little apartments. They thought they were doing Jehovah's will, and by doing without, not realizing that it wasn't just that. It wasn't doing it was lack of privacy.
Yeah.
Hey, Barbara, we got a number of other people. We just had a number of people pop in here. If you wanted to say hello to Deborah, we got about 5 minutes left. So go ahead. If they haven't spoken up now, go ahead. Now's your chance to say hello to Deborah Hines. She's been on for going on 3 hours here now. So go ahead, speak up, say hello to Deborah. There was just a number of people I saw come across the screen here that wanted to speak up. So now's your chance to do it. A lot of people have just come into the 6th screen. So if you'd like to say hello to Deborah, do it right now. Let me just take a look here. Let me get this other. I've got 6 computers going here. You can't see it, but it's amazing that I catch all of this stuff sometimes going by very, very quick. But we just had a number of people just come in. Deborah Hines, she's been really totally abused by the Watchtower. She was Barbara Anderson's guest tonight. And we're going to give you the last chance to say hello to her. There's a number of people on our telephone line. It seems like they're having a little difficulty coming in. Well, Deborah, we're going to cut you loose.
Hello.
Go ahead. You're on with us.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Natalie calling from California, and just wanted to say, loving the program. I'm kind of a newbie to this, but enjoying it. I was a regular pioneer for a long, long time. And Deborah, I missed the front end of this interview, but I'll go back and watch that. I can tell you have got a great story to tell, so I'm looking forward to watching that. And Barbara, you're a total legend. We know a lot of the same people from
which is synonymous with old, right?
The good die young, they say.
Yeah, right. you can't convince me, you know.
Really enjoyed your program, Rick, as well, and thanks for producing it. I kind of just caught on to this in the last month, and it's a little strangely addictive. So really good. And my father used to be a talk coordinator and brought Simonian out to our congregation many years ago, and was I'm pretty sure gave him a green handshake. But they were wont to do those things in those days. But
yes, thank you for speaking up.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Again, when you listen again, we
absolutely. Yeah, I would love to connect with you sometime, Barbara, and discuss more.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, wonderful. All right, thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Nadine. Okay, we've got 308. 308. Come on, 308.
Hey, Deborah. I really appreciate that you shared your story with us tonight. And I know it's difficult to come on and kind of just spill your guts of everything that's been going on, you know, in your life that's been so hard to deal with. And I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out and sharing your story with so many, because I know it could help a lot of people.
I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. It is difficult, but if it helps anybody, it's worth it.
Well,
yeah, it really is.
Thank you, Nebraska, for coming in. Okay, I think we'll probably end it here. Let Deborah and Barbara have a rest. Now, I just wanted to mention the first few minutes of this video got a little snafu on YouTube. It didn't come through, but don't worry about it. It's live streaming right now, but tomorrow the whole YouTube clip will be up. But you came in you missed about 5-10 minutes of it, but it'll be up tomorrow, the entire YouTube. So what you've been listening here now is a live stream, obviously, but when it is uploaded tomorrow, we'll make that adjustment so the whole video is played. Okay, well, Deborah, thank you. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Deborah. Thank
you. Oh, I think this was a good night. We had a good night here. And
yes.
Deborah, you just relaxed tonight. You just go to bed knowing that as brutal and difficult as it was, all of a sudden now you have a voice, people are hearing it, and you're helping so many people, Deborah. Keep standing tall and waving that flag of victory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, too.
All righty. Yes. Well, we're going to go on now. We're going to end this broadcast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Barbara out. And we're going to, okay, anyways, what you think of that program? Wasn't that something else? Well, I'll tell you what, I after 17 years of doing this program, I have to tell you, that was one of my favorite. That was a unique program, having Deborah come on. So we thank Barbara for putting that all together. She made the whole thing happen. So we want to thank her for doing that. What I want to do, too, is we now have Red Pill by the Watchtower with our good man Eric. That's coming on next right here on the 6 screens, Tell the Network. So we're going to end this broadcast, and now we're going to Red Pill by the Watchtower. And then after Red Pill by the Watchtower, somewhere around probably 1 o'clock, 1:30 today, I guess, yeah, we're now going into a new day, I guess. So somewhere around 1:30, we'll have a pasta babe coming on. So we're going to end this broadcast, and we're going to Red Pill by the Watchtower right here on this YouTube and Facebook channels.